and her sister Lana, and that Natalie came upon RJ in the Beverly Hills mansion um, in Flagnet with a man. And Lana recalled Natalie arriving in hysterics at their parents' house with her hand bleeding and shutting herself in the old bedroom. And Natalie woke up in the hospital, dazed and shocked, after taking an overdose of sleeping pills and going into a coma. Now, that was as much as she wrote, but there is more to the story. The fallout from a lifetime of psychological damage and abuse led Natalie to multiple suicide attempts, daily psychoanalysis, and the fear of being alone at night so primal and deep that she regressed to her childhood self. Her greatest fear, she discovered, derived from a prophecy of superstitions, a Russian mother by. Welcome back to True Crime Lounge Podcast on Spotify and YouTube, also on Pandora and wherever you get your podcast. I have a Patreon that you can join for episodes scheduled to come out. I also have a merch shop that you can go get all your true crime gear from. For any updates on my channel or podcast, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. With that being said, let's start into today's episode. Today we're going to be continuing on with our mini series on Natalie Wood. Was her death accidental or was it foul play? By the end of this mini series, I will tell you my opinion on this case and what I think it was. But with that being said, let's dive into part two, shall we? In 1981, Wood went missing from the yacht she shared with her husband, only to be found approximately 6 hours later floating face down in the Pacific Ocean. In 2000, Sam Kashner visited the tragedy for Vanity Fair, detailing the details that have prompted decades of speculation about Wood's drowning. Was it really an accident? The next year, Suzanne Finette released Natasha, the definitive biography of Wood, which shed even more light it the more light of Wood. In 2011, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department officially reopened the investigation into Wood's death. Now, nearly 20 years later, Finstead is re-releasing her book, as Natalie Wood. The complete biography, and even more comprehensive volume that includes new details that she learned about Natalie's death since her book's first edition. Details, according to the author, show even more conclusively that Wood didn't drown by chance, but even the author reveals her most explosive findings. And that's why now, more than ever, she believes that Wagner played a role in the fall that killed her. Natalie never disclosed her history of trauma except through her fragile vulnerability and her tender old soul eyes. As going through her past, Natalie's demons and their origins revealed themselves as they were released from a genie's lamp. From family violence, an alcoholic father, a pathological attachment to her savage Bengali stage mom, psychological abuse as a child star, paranoias, phobias, a bedroom of storybook dolls that she believed was alive and spoke to her, pimped at 15 to Frank Sinatra, forced to return an engagement ring to her high school sweetheart, who tried to kill himself afterwards, exploited into a sexual liaison as a teenager with a 42-year-old director, Nicholas Ray, to prove that she could play a quote bad girl unquote and a rebel without a cause. The secret that was buried was was in the secret that was buried deepest in Natalie's closet of skeletons was a shocking end of her fairy tale marriage to Bobby Sock's idol, Robert Wagner. Known to her family and friends as RJ, to protect his image, Natalie publicly took the fall for his sudden divorce in 1961. She never refuted the fan magazines that her marriage to Wagner imploded over an alleged affair she had with her co-star Warren Beatty while filming Splendor in the Glass. In the time, the gossip, patently false, was reported as a fact. Only a trusted few knew Natalie's account, and it was told by three of Natalie's closest friends, by her mom's best friend and her sister Lana, and that Natalie came upon RJ in the Beverly Hills mansion um, and flagging it with a man. And Lana recalled Natalie arriving in hysterics at their parents' house with her hand bleeding and shutting herself in the old bedroom. And Natalie woke up in the hospital, dazed and shocked, after taking an overdose of sleeping pills and going into a coma. Now, that was as much as she wrote, but there is more to the story. The fallout from a lifetime of psychological damage and abuse led Natalie to multiple suicide attempts, daily psychoanalysis, and the fear of being alone at night so primal and deep that she regressed to her childhood self. Her greatest fear, she discovered, derived from a prophecy of superstitions, a Russian mother by a gypsy, namely that she would die in the dark water. Very interesting. It was also discovered that Natalie's drowning was not an accident. Homicide detectives in LA Sheriff's Department kept what they call a murder book in the official record of the homicide investigation that she was given access to Natalie's murder book. And there she found the buried clues to what really happened that night, and as evidence slowly, painstakingly mounted, it became disturbingly clear that not only was Natalie's death not an accident, but the ensuing investigation was non-existent. As a self-described dutiful child, Natalie was trained by her mom to keep silent, to not rock the boat. As she got older, she kept her silence, often to protect others, as was Natalie's way. And during her life, in death, even after her death, no one that could see has ever protected her. Certainly not her mom, the directors that exploited her, the studio executives who looked the other way, the men who abused her, or the sheriff's detectives and coroner examiners investigating her drowning in 1981. In the archives of forgotten facts, hidden truths, and concealed evidence about Natalie Wood, what is the most shocking of Robert Wagner's role in the drowning? The man that Wood married not once, but twice. In her drowning. And he would go on to say, with a glass raised, "She takes my breath away," and refused to search for 2.5 hours when Natalie went missing from the boat in the waters of Catalina Island. I'm sorry, but if your wife is missing, don't you think you will want to be searching for her so you know what was going on? Of all of Natalie's secrets that was held in 2001, the secret was the secret was the reason for the urgency. There was a realization of an unimaginable horror that she had drowned and that she needed to make public of the dark and twisted facts that was drowning and of the aftermath. And she would uncover the facts using the sheriff's murder books, put them together, and strung them into a now light that lights and strung them into a row like lights of a Christmas tree, revealing that the full horror of that strange doomed night it was not the it was not change the outcome of her drowning, but it would be evident after Natasha that she did not cause her own death because She was drunk from wine and champagne, as the coroner Thomas Noguchi stated. People would come to see, as Natasha said, that Natalie was drowning was not an accident. Now there are three witnesses. One is a um, confidential source that she was put in touch with Ralph Hernandez, one of the investigators put in charge of the case, where the LA Sheriff's Department officially reopened the investigation into Wood's drowning in November 2011. The source had information that Christopher Walken said he heard a fight between RJ and Natalie, and told a friend that not long after Natalie drowned, that Wagner pushed her. Warner once asked Hernandez and Kevin Lowe, the lead detectives, about Walken's statement. Wow said the only other way Chris would talk is that he never disclosed after they spoke to him. Now, there are two other witnesses that were present at Natalie's autopsy. Vio Herrera, whom Natasha would learn from a documentary producer, took photographs of Natalie's body for the coroner's office. Herrera told would tell her that he observed significant wounds to Natalie's head, while Fernandez, who took a sworn statement and has seen the original photos, and concurs that Natalie's head wounds are troubling. Head wounds that may indicate was in a violent fight, and that she was pushed or tossed in the water, and, well, unconscious. Because of Wagner's deckhand, Dennis Darwin omitted from the statement to the police. The push by Wagner was acknowledged when he thought he was off camera. Hernandez still lacked witnesses to establish how Natalie got in the water to begin with. With no witnesses, the DA's office might agree to take a case against Wagner to a grand jury. And according to Lana, Natalie's sister, the DA's office told her that they want a smoking gun. Dr. Michael Franco may be able to provide a missing link. Franco, a family medicine specialist in Los Angeles, is interned at the LA coroner's office when Natalie's body was flown to LA County. As a volunteer intern in 1981, he wasn't listed as a coroner employee, therefore he would not have been questioned. Franco observed, and he has certain critical physical evidence on Natalie's body that establishes her death was indeed homicide. For 40 years, Franco has kept silent, not wanting to be pulled into a media circus. After decades of reflection, and by frustration, he decided to come forward, saying it's the right thing to do. So, when Franco observed this and found suspicious were the bruises on Natalie's interior thighs and arms, bruises he described as friction burns. He told Natasha what struck him as wrong was that he remembers the striations were the opposite direction of somebody trying to get onto the boat. It was also like somebody was being pushed off, and it became a significant amount of bruising in the lower anterior thighs and shins. That's what caught his attention. So she basically would have been forcefully off, and was a force, with no pulling her off or something. And the amount of noticeable bruising to the thigh had been there. Franco took it out with the doctor, and he told him that he had trouble understanding them, and he said that they seemed to be opposite direction of what would have been expected to cause of death. And he also remembers saying that when he told him who he was, he hesitantly stopped what he was doing, looked up at him, nodded his head, didn't say anything, and then went back to what he was doing. What he said was some things are best left unsaid. Hmm. Do we think someone knows what happened and they're just not saying anything? Possibly. Now, Naguchi's admission to momentarily confused Franco and wasn't sure what he meant. Naguchi went on to say, according to Franco, he stood there staring at him. This is my cue to step back, so he played for that for the rest of his life. Now Franco is ready to share what happened to him. Natalie Wood's death wasn't an accident, someone pushed her. He wasn't following the case, so he didn't know who all the players were. He wasn't playing detective, he was just interested in the information. All he knew was what he saw. He knew that this wasn't a simple drowning, that there was some outrageous that could come to a conclusion that he was pushed off or whatever. There are no reasons to have that unless you are being pushed off and that you were deeper in. There is another possibility. What if Wagner dropped a dinghy to make it look like Natalie had gone ashore? What if the story he gave to the police, Darwin said that the dinghy being dropped into the water was a horrible fight, and on the rear deck he saw RJ somewhere near the dinghy, and the next time Darwin saw him he was sweating, looked like he was struggling, and the dinghy was gone.